In this lecture, we're going to explore how to create effective templates that work for you. Let's talk about the purpose of templates. Templates provide a structure for composing quickly. One of my favorite phrases is limitation breeds creativity. Because a blank canvas is intimidating, a template provides the rules and that structure you need to start writing immediately and to be inspired to write. So I strongly recommend that you always set up a template before composing. Helps you to get organized and to set up what you need before you start writing. I encourage every composer to have a template for each major media type. So that's films, TV, and games, but more specifically, it might be a specific genre of a game or a specific genre of film or a TV promo versus a feature film. There are a lot of different types of media you're going to be writing for, so it's important to have a plan of attack for every type before you just start mindlessly writing music without purpose and without structure. Templates allow for instant composing. There's nothing more satisfying for me when I have a tight deadline than to be able to open up a brand new session, one of my templates, and just to be able to write immediately, to not have to get bogged down with all of the organization of markers and my different time code elements if it's a film, or having to load up every single one of my instruments and worry about the mix, the EQ, the reverb, and all these different things that can steal so much time. So what makes for an effective template? Probably the most important factor is to go ahead and have your markers established. So markers are for length primarily, to determine when events happen within the time, and to indicate section breaks. So if this is a pop song, for example, you're going to have your verses divided into different sections, and then you're going to have your chorus, and you might have a bridge. Maybe if it's a video game loop, you're going to have an A section, B section, C section, and an indicator telling you when it's going to loop. You'll already have your looper bar set up for when it repeats. Or if it is a feature film, you're going to have your cues divided up, and we can talk later about chunks in particular within Digital Performer of how you can actually divide it up further. But the idea is to have your sections divided up so that it's easy to instantly start writing without having to think about any of those organization items. Another really important factor for an effective template is to already have all of your instruments loaded and to have all of your possible audio tracks fully loaded with all your mixing plugins and to have them record enabled. So the beauty of this is you can literally open up a session, hit your MIDI controller, and start playing. You don't have to think at all about the mix. Another important component are buses and bounces or stems already set up. So again, when you load up your session, you should be able to hit a note and it sounds exactly the way it needs to. The beauty of buses are they allow you to group several tracks together. For example, as we explore later about orchestral mixing, such as a string section, you might have 15, 20 tracks, which are different instruments within the string section, but one bus groups them all together so that you can have one reverb type for all of the strings, or you can have one EQ setting for all the strings. When you have these things preset, it makes composing so much faster, so much easier, and really inspiring when you sit down to write. On the other side are your bounces, so depending on what type of media you're writing for, video games in particular require multiple layers, usually for interactive and adaptive music. So it's important to already have your master track bounces so that as soon as you hit the record button at the end of the project, you can automatically export it in whatever configuration you want. You could bounce out 10 different audio tracks to different specifications. In 1 minute's worth of playing, you could have 10 1-minute tracks instead of having to laboriously go through and bounce them all one at a time, and all of the time-sucking procedures that might come with that. With films, it's equally, if not more, time intensive to export all of your different stems. So anytime that you can go ahead and have a template that does the work for you, does that heavy lifting for you right at the beginning, it's going to make your life so much easier because it's going to be considerably faster. The final element here is to go ahead and have a screen layout set up that is going to contribute to composition or production. So when I'm working on a feature film, for example, I'm going to have a very different screen layout with my 3 screens. I have a main monitor in the front and then 2 on the sides. I like to have my movie on the left screen. I like to have my mixer on the right screen and then my main DAW on the middle screen. So that allows me to already have my setup, and I have particular windows within that, such as my markers, my chunks, my audio files. There's a particular place I like to have each of those elements so that as soon as I start writing, I'm all set. Compare that to maybe a TV promo where I don't need footage, I don't need an actual movie file. So my left screen, what would normally be empty, I might put some notes from a director, or I might put my mixer, since I actually have a physical mixer over here, I might want that mixing to be on this left screen so that I can see that directly as I move my faders. On my right screen, instead of the mixer now on the left screen, I might throw on there just more plugin options so that I can see everything I need to see at once. And every genre and every type of media is just going to require different visuals as you compose for those and produce for those. So anytime you can set up that screen layout beforehand, it saves you a lot of time in the long run. So templates ultimately are the starting point. We use these so that you load up your session, then all you have to do is take maybe 5 minutes and you go in and you make the edits necessary, anything that is immediately necessary to customize to the current project. So perhaps your film template has 300 instruments, and that is something we're going to explore in another lecture soon about how to actually put together templates that are massive. That way, when you open up your template, you have everything under the sun, but then for your particular project, you might erase 200 of those instruments, 250 of those instruments, be left with 50. But they're the 50 right instruments, and it's so much easier to take away than it is to add. So it's great to have that starting off. So every project's going to require different customization, but when you can take them away that easily, it really saves you, I think, hours per project, not just a little bit of time. Let's take a look at a few examples here of real templates that I use actively. First one is going to be for TV promos. Now you'll notice behind my session, I actually have a Vienna Ensemble Pro instance here with a ton of instruments. There's actually about 300 or 400 different instruments back there. So that's what this is attaching to. Again, we'll explore that in another lecture. But this ensemble here is very small, you'll notice. Now down here in Digital Performer is my full track selector list of every instrument that I have loaded in Vienna Ensemble Pro, but I only have the tracks selected that I'm actually using actively and the ones I typically use. So it's already kind of shrunk down to a very usable size. I can fit it all on one screen without having to scroll up and down all day and look for specific tracks. I absolutely love that I can open this session, and because Vienna Ensemble Pro is instantly loaded in the background, all I have to do is start playing. And basically I would move up and down to any other sound that I'd like, such as strings. Or maybe an epic choir. Or maybe some low brass. So everything is already pre-mixed, ready to go right out of the box. And so notice my markers, I have in, a big drop here, note to be big here in the middle, because for TV promos you're only doing 30 seconds usually, 30 or 45 seconds. And so here's a little taste of what that sounds like, and this is right out of the box for how I've mixed it. Another template example is for films. So you'll notice how the layout is completely different, a lot of details going on here. And this is 3 screens worth of information condensed into 1 screen, so it's a little busy. But you'll notice, for example, most primarily we have the movie here and a lot of different tabs. So I have my markers, but I also have a chunks window, which means each scene is divided into its own mini session. And we're using VRACs, which means it's one set of instruments for the entirety of the movie, but they're all routed into one set instead of having to duplicate resources, save a lot of resources. And then we have a track selector over here. We have markers, affect performance. That way I can actually see what is taking up a lot of memory in case something is bottlenecking, such as reverb. I have snap information and sound bites. So it's a lot of information to look at, but it's very important while composing to be able to monitor those different parameters. So most notably, you'll notice how it's a very small template, mostly ethnic instruments, pads, pianos, things that you would typically use in a documentary, for example. So you'll notice how I pull it up and I can just start playing. I already have all my effects loaded, which is incredible because I can just start writing without having to think. I can just think about music. And that could be a cue right there. And it took 10 seconds, you know? So this is how you can write music really, really fast. You'll also notice if I were to play just a little bit.
To create. If you look at the Doing Business Index ranking, only you will see that it is harder to.
I wanted to show you that over here, my mixer, which is over here by my left hand, is attached to the movie audio as well as the music. So I like to use my first 2 faders to control those. So just as I play, you'll notice me playing over here how we can duck in and out.
Do business anywhere in Sub-Saharan Africa than it is in any Scandinavia. One in any part of Scandinavia to start and run a business than it is for almost anyone in Sub-Saharan Africa.
So that's the idea, is to have as much flexibility as possible. Now, you don't have to go out and buy a mixer per se. You could, they're not that expensive, but you could also, if you have a smartphone or an iPad tablet, you can actually just put some, there's about $5, $10 apps out there that you can have a virtual mixer and then do the exact same thing where as you're playing, you can use different audio channel routing to go in and out there, which is a huge time saver, particularly with film or footage in general. In this last template, I want to show you video game sound effects. Very different from the previous 2 examples. So over here, you'll notice how I actually have my own custom instruments over here. So if I just start playing, like an electric piano, or I might have harmonica. Now in particular, this is for a game I've been working on, Beard Blade. So these are all custom 16-bit Super Nintendo sounds, instruments that I created for the game. And so I just took all of those instruments, turned them into contact instruments, and here I have a full palette that I can then transform those into sound effects. And so all I have done here is with my markers, I've set up different names of sound effects, and they're by category. So I can go over here to my markers and actually type in a particular type of category. So I might say UI, and then all of the sound effects that have anything to do with the menus or the the UI, they will appear there. And then I have each of them categorized up here. So it's just a very clean, organized way to write. So that way, when I sit down to write more sound effects, I can knock out probably 3 to 5 of these within an hour, which is very, very fast, which is good. That's up to speed. Just like with music, I'm able to write about 1 minute every 3 hours, which is up to speed. And it's important to have these processes in place so that you can do that. And so if we were to check out some of the sound effects I've made recently using this, you can see how organized it is.